Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So in this one here, I want to break down the teaser images that we got for episode 5 because they're a lot more revealing, and I do want to talk about certain storylines that I feel like are going to be a part of this episode. It seems like there's going to be two newer characters that are introduced here in this episode here, and I think that they're probably just going to be like episode 5 characters. It's not going to really mean anything more than that, but I will say, just that idea alone is very, very interesting because it's been a while since like we've just had an episode like that, right? Like I feel like this episode so far, the way it's being set up anyways, is it feels very much like a classic Walking Dead episode, right? Where you just have Rick and Michonne in the woods trying to survive or whatever, and then they meet, new people, and then it's just sort of, are these people good people, or are they going to try cause stuff, this and that, you know what I mean? So yeah, I want to talk about that and just break down these images here in general. So before we go any further, obviously make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. There's going to be a lot to talk about today. I have a lot of videos planned for today, a lot to talk about for episode 4 and for episode 5. Honestly, I'm so excited for episode 5 because I feel like as of right now, we are sort of in uncharted territory because we don't know, like I haven't seen a lot of people say that they've watched episode 5 early, like in terms of early reviewers and stuff. So I don't know if it's because there's a specific reason for that. I mean, I do feel like I know why that's happening, but yeah, not a lot of people, it seems like, have actually really watched episode 5. So I think that going into these episodes, not really knowing a lot about them, it's kind of, it's exciting, right? Like I think we know generally where the story is going to go, like roughly anyways. Like I know at some point they're probably going to end up back at the CRM. They are going to, run into Jadis. Things aren't going to be this simple, but no one has said anything about like, is this the best episode ever, or which one's the best so far of the season, this and that, so I'm interested in watching this one here, and I want to know what people have to say in terms of, people who have actually watched the episode early, if anyone actually has, because it really feels like no one has, or maybe if they did, they're not allowed to talk about the fact that they actually did, and it has to be just completely quiet, and then they'll just have their reviews up this Sunday, right? We'll have to wait and see, but yeah, definitely make sure to be a subscriber if you want to get all my Walking Dead content, because like I said, there's going to be a lot coming out today and a lot throughout the week here. So this first shot here of Rick is, this is the next day, it seems like. So again, like I know that when you look at the episode 5 trailer, they do find that cabin or whatever that is, and I think they do spend the night there. And then obviously at some point Rick changes his outfit or whatever, and then like obviously the next day he's ready to go here. And I will say, just on that, in terms of our characters like changing their clothes and stuff like that a lot, like it's really interesting because like obviously early on in the apocalypse that wasn't really a thought, but I feel like, and I guess like I don't know if this is something that is very intentional by the writers and stuff like that, but it's interesting to just see our characters sort of even think about changing clothes and all that, right? But I guess early on you're not thinking about things like that because the apocalypse is happening. You're just like you're just gonna wear whatever you're wearing, right? But I think after a while, once you sort of you get used to the apocalypse, then I feel like old habits sort of come into play where you're like, well, this is just how I sort of get clothes now, right? You just find clothes everywhere kind of thing. You just kind of change your clothes. Like I feel like that is something that is just sort of, that's a new aspect to the apocalypse, right? Because I feel like a lot of our characters now always change their clothes. Like they're always in something new in like every other episode. And I'm like, it's weird that you would even think about that. But again, they're like 10, 15 years into the apocalypse. So it is very, very different, right? But yeah, we do see Rick here. And at this point here, he's probably left the place he was in, or maybe they're camping out for the night. I'm not entirely sure. But again, right now they are on their way back to Alexandria. I don't think it's going to be that simple. I don't think they're going to make it back. Honestly, I don't see that happening. And yeah, we see Rick pointing his gun at somebody here. And so I don't think this is Jadis. There is going to be two newer characters, because if you see the trailer, it looks like there's going to be two other characters here that Rick actually does run into. I don't know who they are. I don't think they're any other characters from any other shows or anything like that. I think that they're completely new characters. I just wonder if they're going to play a role in the story, in terms of they know about the CRM and this and that, and they're the ones who tell Jadis about, the fact that Rick and Michonne are here. Because I wonder if that's going to be a part of this episode, right? Like Rick and Michonne, they're trying to go back to Alexandria and they run into people here. And I wonder if that's going to be the whole debate of this episode, is like, what do we do with them? Because they saw us, and so what if they just go and tell the CRM now, and then they have to deal with that, and then that could be a big issue. And I think that's my whole thing with this plan. And I think why it's not going to work is because if they go back to Alexandria, first of all, you're probably going to have to just take Judith and everyone away. Like you're going to have to honestly tell everybody to leave because the CRM is just that dangerous, right? I know no one's in Alexandria. I know that, but I'm just saying, like, you're going to have to do that because Jadis, if she's interested in knowing, like, again, maybe not right now, but if like a certain amount of time has passed and she's like, I wonder if Rick and Michonne actually died, she could just go back to Alexandria or go back around there, and then she'll just find out, oh, actually, they made it back here. They're here. So, like, that's always going to be an issue, right? They're always going to have to worry about that. And so I just feel like it just makes no sense for them to go back, because the CRM could just go back there. Jadis could just go back there. Like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. It really does not make a lot of sense. And so Rick and Michonne, I don't think they're going to be able to live like that. They're not going to be able to be in a place where they're like, okay, we got to hide from the CRM forever, right? Like, they're never going to be able to do that. Like, they don't want to do that. So I think that they are going to have to deal with them. And that's going to be a big issue here. And I think that's why that, you know, that definitely connects to what Michonne said at the end of the trailer. And I will say, I've seen some people complaining about that, saying that Michonne saying, you know, like, this isn't going to end with us going back home or whatever, and how frustrating that is, because you spent the whole episode focusing on Michonne, convincing Rick that you have to go back home. Then all of a sudden at the end of this one here, she's sort of saying the same thing Rick was saying the whole time, which is like, we can't go back home, right? I do get that, but I also think that that is also a part of it as well, right? Like, I think that they are going to try and go home. And I think for Michonne, that's also a part to the whole thing, is that she doesn't completely understand it, right? So I'm happy with the way it turned out, because you brought Rick back to being more like himself. And so now I think, you know, if they were to go back and they realize, okay, we can't actually do this, then I just think that, again, it just makes sense to me. And I think Michonne, you know, obviously is going to be taking things a lot more seriously here. And then she'll learn a lot more about, you know, how dangerous the CRM are, especially if Jadis shows up, right? Like, I think that's the whole part to it too, is like, they're expecting the CRM to just believe that they're dead. You know, that is definitely, in terms of the writing, that is one aspect to it that, again, they're not really thinking through, but I feel like they're probably going to address that here in episode 5, which is like, Jadis, you know, she's not going to just completely believe that. She's not going to be like, okay, so you guys just died. Okay, that's it, right? She's going to look into it a lot more, and she's going to end up around there. And I think that it's not going to be that simple for them to just go back. And again, they can't just kill Jadis. And so that's why I kind of wonder if that's going to happen here. Like, if that's going to be the whole, you know, sort of fear about if something happens to Jadis here. If episode 5 ends with Jadis' death, and then all of a sudden Michonne and Rick are freaking out because they're like, okay, now that she's dead, the CRM are going to find out something about, you know, us in terms of Alexandria and stuff. We have to go back, you know. And I wonder if that is what's going to happen here. And so that's set up for the finale to be like this big thing, because they have to go back in order to like get rid of that, in order to save Alexandria, right? That could be a really crazy part to the story here. And like, do they succeed? I think it would be crazy if they didn't. And the reason why I say that is because, first of all, no one's in Alexandria really. So you're not really, you know, you're not killing off any important characters there. And also, you know, they're not really filming in Alexandria anymore. They took down all the sets and stuff like that. I think there's still some stuff up that people have said, but it's like, in general, it's like, you don't have to do anything like that there, right? Like, you're at the Commonwealth now. You can focus the story there. Maggie's at the Bricks. She's not even at the Hilltop anymore. So those old communities are just completely gone at this point. And so I just think, focus on this, and for the story, just do something very exciting here with Alexandria and make it a part of the finale here to this season. I think it would be really incredible, right? Like, the Kingdom's downfall was such a big part of season 9, right? And going into season 10, the Hilltop's downfall was a big part of, you know, the end of season 10, especially early in season 11 and whatnot, and trying to rebuild. And I think Alexandria's downfall could be next and be a big part of this show here. We have this shot here of Michonne, and it looks like this is probably towards the end of the episode here. They're both sort of like crouched down, and they're talking about, I mean, I don't know what here, but I'm assuming at this point Jadis is dead or something like that. But yeah, we have a shot right here of Michonne, and again, they're talking about something here, and this is all related to the scene where Michonne says this isn't going to end with us going home. Another shot right here of Rick and Michonne, and it looks like they're talking to two people, but I believe that these are walkers here, because in the trailer you do see walkers, but there are actual characters in this scene though, for sure. Like, there are actual characters here. And what I will say, it is kind of cool if you're looking at Rick, because I mean, first of all, I don't think that's Michonne's katana. Obviously it's not, but yeah, Rick almost has his red machete. Not really, obviously, because the handle's not red, but that kind of looks like a machete, so that's kind of cool. It's almost a reference to season 5 Rick Grimes, right? We then have this other shot here of Rick and Michonne, and this just looks like it's at some point during the episode. A lot of these shots here, it's like, it's hard to sort of read into a lot of them here. Like, we have a shot right here, although this one here is a lot more here. So Michonne seems to actually find somebody here, and Rick is obviously hiding there, and I'm assuming at this point that it is Jadis. And I'll talk about Jadis' death death in another video, just because I mean, there's a lot to break down there. There's actual scenes that I think were shown in the trailers and previous trailers that I think are related to this episode here. And I wonder if Jadis is going to die by a walker bite or something like that. I would be really interested if she actually, gets bit by a walker. And then if that just means like, in terms of Rick and Michonne's story, they're just like, oh, what do we do now? This and that. And then now Jadis is just like, I mean, obviously that file that she has on Alexandria and all that's going to be a big concern, right? So I wonder if Michonne right here is aiming at Jadis, because I think that it makes sense. Like Jadis is for sure going to be in this episode. And then we have another shot here of Rick and Michonne, and just really awesome shot. Another one here of Michonne, which is just, really, really cool one. This other shot of Michonne, and at this point here, it looks like, again, it seems like this is towards the end of the episode, after all the action scenes and stuff that have happened. I mean, who knows? Maybe Jadis is dead at this point here, and Michonne's just sort of reacting to it. Another one here of Michonne and Rick, and it's still sort of the same thing. And then, we get this last shot here of them as well. And again, like a lot of these shots here, they're interesting and whatnot for the teaser, but there's not a lot here besides the first couple of ones that I talked about. But episode 5, I'm very, very interested in the aspect of if Jadis does die, what that's going to mean overall for, I guess, going back to the CRM, because they're going to go back there. I don't see it being like, again, like that's just sort of the place that we're in right now. And I know that this is something that people are wondering about a lot, but I think it just makes a lot of sense. People want to know if there's going to be a season 2, if this is the end. And like, it's so weird going into episode 5. There's no talk of like, this is the end of Rick and Michonne's story, or come watch the end of their story, right? There's no talk about that. It's literally just like, there's 2 episodes left. And like, they've promoted every other season before this, just like that, like exactly like that, like, oh, there's 2 episodes left, or there's 3 episodes remaining, or something like that, so there's not anything new in terms of their promotion of this. Like, it doesn't feel like this is like the end of Rick and Michonne's story, because I also think that you don't want to promote it like that if that's not the case. Like, you don't want to trick people, right? And people thinking like, oh, this is actually the end, and then all of a sudden it's not the end, because I mean, you have one opportunity to do that. Once you do that, the next time you promote things like that, people aren't going to even believe it. They're going to be like, oh, I remember when you promoted this like that, and that ended up not being the case, right? So I just think promote it, as just what it is. And that's sort of what they're doing. They're just saying that, like, there's 2 episodes left, but they're not saying that this is like the end of Rick and Michonne's story. It's sort of just like, oh, here's the next episode or whatever, right? And so I'm going to be really interested in, like, again, the next 2 weeks are going to be so much fun. Like, after episode 5, that last week, there's going to be even more questions. Like, I said this before the season started. People were wondering at that point, is there going to be a season 2? And like, as every episode comes out, people are going to be asking that more and more, and it's going to be coming up every single day. Like, is there a season 2? Is there going to be, and it's sort of hard to not talk about, because when you're talking about, the next 2 episodes, like, you want to sort of, especially for me, talking about like, where I see the story going and all of that, it's hard to not talk about a season 2, because it changes so much. Like, if this is the end, then in terms of my thoughts on where the story is going, it's going to change entirely, right? Whereas if it gets a season 2, then it's like, well, again, I can see them ending things in a certain way. And so the next 2 weeks are going to be really crazy, and I just can't wait to see where this is all going to go. I think if they announce a season 2 after the show airs, people are going to be like, obviously so happy. And I wonder if they announce it at the very, very end of the episode, if that's sort of the plan. I mean, if that is the case, I mean, they've been very, very secretive as of now, obviously, which has been kind of amazing. And I wonder if that's sort of why they don't want to, like, because like, I'm thinking in terms of like, if Morgan shows up at the very end, right? Like, if that's an actual reveal, would I want them to spoil that there's a season 2? Obviously not. I don't want them to spoil that. I want them to just save that, because as we're watching the episode, we're going to see the very end, and we're all going to be like, whoa, Morgan showed up kind of thing, right? And like freaking out about that, because that confirms that he's going to be in season 2. And then the excitement is just, everyone's going crazy and all of that. So I understand that. And I think, again, that was a big criticism. If you don't remember that was a big criticism of Daryl Dixon and Dead City season 2. And even with both of those spinoffs, because they announced those spinoffs before The Walking Dead ended. So everyone knew those characters were surviving. And then they announced, Dead City season 2, I believe they announced afterwards. And Daryl Dixon, they sort of, I think they filmed season 2 back to back with season 1, I believe. So everyone knew that there was going to be a season 2 coming. And like, yeah, I just think that a lot of the surprise, it just didn't happen right away. So I just think that with the ones who live, they want to wait for that, right? I think that just makes sense to me. But anyways, post all your thoughts down below. Post your predictions for episode 5. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.